In this section, I'm going to synthesize the two previous sections and talk about interactive dashboards with Excel. So in case you were concerned that this would be a heavy coding class, fear not, because the interactive dashboards we're going to make are going to be based off of formulas, and it's going to be based off of form controls, which you'll see are part of the spreadsheet. So there's going to be no VBA, there's going to be no SQL, and there's going to be no pivot tables. And I think a lot of people are shocked because pivot tables are often thought as the precursor for dashboards. So certainly they're important to reporting in Excel. And later we're going to describe one of the problems with pivot tables. So the work that we make, the interactive dashboards that we make, I would like to say that they are living, which means that when we add or change information on the back-end database, it's automatically fed through the calculations and up to through the dashboard presentation. Pivot tables do not give you this flexibility. They're great for reporting and they're great for exploratory data analysis, but you need to use VBA if you want to update pivot tables. So what I like about formulas is that they're automatic. So we can create awesome interactive dashboards and we can do them quickly, as you'll see, and we don't need to use the heavy items of Excel. Now, these items do help, I'm not going to lie. VBA is important, but that's for a much broader class. You can still get by without it. Now I'm going to show you a demo of the VLOOKUP series selection example. This is a completed version of the series selection example. Now let me show you. Down here we have, in B9, we have a drop-down that features several names. And you can see that these names parallel the names that are above here. Now as I change one of these names in the drop-down, I'm going to change it to Sarah, you can see that the numbers here, from C9 to F9, they parallel the numbers up here. So basically, whenever you select a name, it's going to take those numbers right next to it, so the corresponding fields in that record, and it's going to put it down here. And the reason it's going to put it down here is that now I have a linked chart to this range. So as I change this, you can see the chart is going to change automatically. So what I want to show you here is that this is actually very lightweight. There's not a lot of work that went into it. There was no VBA, no SQL, no pivot tables. It can actually be put together very quickly. Now, I'm going to go through the demo very, very quickly. And rather than try to think of it as a step-by-step demo, we'll actually go through in greater detail the formulas and functions in this. So don't think because I'm going quickly that you're going to miss it all. We will be doing it a lot more in depth. I just want to show you the process because I think it's important to see how it all links together. And once you understand it in this high-level view, well, building the formulas, things like that, it actually becomes very easy, almost trivial. So follow along with me as I recreate this. So now let's talk about how to build what I just showed you. So here I'm going to start in cell B9 where it says chart lookup. And you saw that there was a drop-down that listed the names of the sales staff shown right here. What I'm going to do is I'm on the data tab. I'm going to go here to where it says data validation. I'm going to click data validation. And this is going to allow me to select what to put in that drop-down. So I'm going to select list. Here we have the source. Source allows me to connect that list to somewhere on the spreadsheet. And we really like that. You'll see that comes into play much later on. So I'm going to select cells B3 through B6. I'll hit OK here, and you'll see that they appear in this drop-down. Now the next step is to get the corresponding data. So most of us are used to using VLOOKUP to pull back one data item. But here what we can do is I'm going to type in equals VLOOKUP. And now remember the first argument is looking for that lookup value. So I'm going to select that drop-down box because remember that's what changes and it's going to drive this VLOOKUP. So I'll hit F4 to lock it in. When I say lock it in, I'm talking about making something an absolute reference. So I might say double lock. That means to hit it twice. Triple lock, hit it 3 times. That's what I mean by it. So we're going to hit F4 to lock it in right now. I'm going to make sure I hit that comma to move on to the next argument within this function. Now, for those of you who's VLOOKUP before, you know you supply a table array. So that is the data set that we're going to look up from. So we can think of this as kind of our database. So I'm going to select B3. I'm going to take it all the way to F6. Whoop, I'm going to try that one more time. So this is our database we're pulling from. I'm going to hit F4 to lock it in again, and I'll hit comma. Now, we're used to using, if I wanted to pull back north, I would write a 2 here. South, I'd write a 3 here. I want to save us some time. And here's something we can do. I'm going to hit Shift, square bracket. That's going to bring up the curly bracket, so that's where it should be on your keyboard if you're wondering. Shift, square bracket, right next to the P key. In here, I'm going to write 2 because I'm interested in pulling back column 2. I'm going to write 3 because I'm interested in pulling back column 3. I'm going to write 4, and I bet you can guess the next one I'm going to write is 5. So this is going to pull back those columns, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Then finally, I'm going to hit comma again. Make sure in this course, we are always going to use a 0 or a false at the end of VLOOKUP. Approximate match is not our friend. It causes more headache than it's worth, so we will not use it here. So always make sure to put that false, or a 0 will work in Excel. Put that right there. So I'm going to hit enter here. And you see that this is pulling back the right information. But you're probably wondering, what about these other cell items? So let's say I drag this over here. Nope, that doesn't give us what we want. And of course it doesn't, because that's just a regular formula. But Excel also has these secret formulas called array formulas. So array formulas are when you want to return more than one value. What do I mean by return more than one value? Well, remember we use 2, 3, 4, and 5. That means we want to return values that are going to fill 4 cell ranges. So what I'm going to do is, and you'll see this later, is first I made it, I dragged it over to the correct cell range. Now I'm going to go into this formula bar and I'm going to hit Control-Shift-Enter. So that was the keystroke, Control-Shift-Enter. That tells Excel that I am interested in an array formula. And you can see here, interestingly, Excel has now put curly brackets around. So I'm going to unclick that. So looking at this, you can see Excel has now put these curly brackets around that formula, or at least if I click on here, you can see cells in this formula also have curly brackets around them. Now, interestingly, I've reselected this, and I'm going to go in here and select it again. You see that the curly brackets do not appear. So when you hit Control-Shift-Enter, that tells Excel you're interested in an array formula. And then when you click on it later, Excel lets you know it's an array formula by putting those curly brackets. So now we have our correct mechanism. If I go back to cell B9, it's always a good idea to keep testing as you go. And I select mark, you can see 470, 752, 425, 754. It works as we would expect. So there's one other thing we need to do here, and that is add in a chart. So I'll go over here on the Insert tab. I'm going to select this 2D column chart. I'm using Excel 2016. So this will look slightly differently if you use 2010, and probably slightly more like this if you use 2013. But I've inserted a new chart, and I'm going to right-click on that chart, and I'm going to go to Select Data. It's going to bring up this Select Data Source dialog box. So the easiest way to do this is to go over here and click Add, and it's going to ask for 2 things, series name and a series value. Well, we have the series name. That's right here. Right? So I'm going to select B9 in here. Remember I said we're going to go back to that concept of sourcing from the spreadsheet. And then over here where it says series values, well, I have the values right over here. Now I'm going to show you the wrong way of doing this first. If I select these here, you see it adds this plus. I'm going to move this out of the way. It said plus this one thing. It's very annoying. So this is what happens when you try to add without deleting what's in series values first. So here's the right way to do it. From here, oh, looks like it's not going to let me do it. But from series name, you're going to highlight the whole thing and you're going to hit delete. So now that I've deleted what's already in there, I'm going to select C9 through F9. And I'll hit OK. Now, you can see that this chart is linked to those dynamic cells, but there's still one problem. Down below in the labels it says 1, 2, 3, 4. We don't want it to say that. We want it to actually say north, south, east, and west. So what I'll do is I'll click edit over here. I'm just going to select this label range. So let me move that out of the way. C2 through F2. So I'll hit OK here, and I'll hit OK again. And that's actually all that's needed to be done. So if I go over here and I select mark, that mark informs this series of VLOOKUPs to which this chart is attached. Now, it took us a while to make it because we had to talk through it all. but imagine how quickly you can make those in the future. So this is the type of development we're going to focus on Excel. The stuff that's very easy, the stuff that uses charts and data visualizations, and that is informative. And the best part about this is that if I change the data right here, if we thought of this as our database, it would automatically change the data over here that's in the chart lookup, which would automatically be reflected on this chart. So there's no VBA to update. There's no pivot tables to hit update. This is stuff that happens very quickly, and I'm very excited to show you what can be made.